All right, so this month you'll see that mine is in a box, but yours is going to be delivered in a bag if you are a local delivery, or if you are a shipment customer, it will be in a box. Okay, this was such a small project, but it was wide, and so we felt like it took up, it was so much of a waste of a box for non-shipments. So that's why we put it in a bag. Okay, so here is what we have. Now you saw in the opening what we're making, but here is what's going to be in your kit. We gave you 7 different colors to choose from. My plan is to use all of those, but as you all know, the demo is made as I am actually painting the very first demo. So I sometimes don't know, I guess. And so I gave you 2 half yellow sponges because I was thinking that I might prefer yellow to paint those backer pieces than the white sponges. You'll have a glue, you'll have a few white wedges, and then you'll have your wood pieces, and you have these weird pieces in. These are the kickstand for the back, and I'll show you how that's used at the very end. So we're just gonna set that aside. Now this is your August 2024 box. It's box number 46, and this is your fall word block. You're going to want to have a paper plate or your pizza box handy for your paint, and baby wipes, of course. You should not need, maybe a pair of scissors. Grab a pair of scissors in case you want to cut your sponges in half. All right, so I'm gonna pull everything out and we're gonna get started painting. Now, of course, you all know by now my instructions are made after I make this demo video, so you'll have instructions, which you know led you to this video because you had to scan the QR code on them. So I'm going to set my smaller pieces aside, and I'm going to set my letters and my pumpkin aside for a minute. And I'm going to focus on the blocks. So I'm going to paint these first. Now, you can put scrapbook paper on these with some Mod Podge if you would rather, if you had scrapbook paper. But for me, I'm just going to paint them. I'm going to paint them each a little bit differently, so hold on to your hats for that. But this backer piece is does not get painted at all, so you're just going to set that aside. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to paint that with a sweater weather look. So I'm going to use the yellow sponge. I think I probably could have used the white, but I'm going to use the yellow. And we're going to make sure also that you guys get a round and a flat brush with this. So your kit will also have a round brush and a flat brush, because it will be easier to make plaid stripes with the round and the flat brush. All right, so I'm going to put a thin coat of sweater weather paint on this. And then, of course, I'm going to let that dry so I can get a second coat on it. I had given myself red paint. I'm not going to use red, so I'm going to eliminate that because I just decided that it will look silly. It will just be too far off. I'm going to paint the heart of my pumpkin, sweater weather as well. So I'm going to paint the F backer board with the pumpkin. That's the darker of the orange, of the oranges. And then I'm going to put another coat on this sweater weather because it's dry, but I want to use the same sponge and the fern green to paint my small or my shorter L. So I'm just going to coat each of these real quick to get their second coats on. So I'm going to paint this piece with the fern, but I don't want it that dark of a green, so I'm just going to use this sweater weather sponge that's still wet, and I'm going to grab the green, and then I'm just going to lighten that up a little. I might have to add a little bit more Sweater Weather to my sponge for the second coat. Now you could mix your paint on your tray or your box so you get the same even coating, the same covering, but I just kind of rub until it is a universal or a blended cover. All right, now this one, I am going to paint brown, but a light brown. I'm gonna add a little bit of the Sweater Weather in there as well. So I think I'm gonna give you guys another yellow sponge. I'll actually make sure that you guys have 4 sponges in your kits. That way you don't have to combine the green and the Sweater Weather there if you don't want to. All right, so I am going to use brown and Sweater Weather on this one because I want to make that more of a lighter brown. So I'm just going to dip to get a little bit of the Sweater Weather onto my tile, and then I'm going to dip the sponge into my brown paint, and then I'm going to blend it on the tile. Now if you, again, just like with the fern and the marshmallow or the Sweater Weather, if you want to blend it on a plate or the box, go ahead and do that. All right, and that will need another coat, so we're gonna let that dry for a second. We're gonna move back to our F here, and we're gonna give that another coat, our first tile. I'll let that dry. Our Sweater Weather does not need another coat. We'll get this one coated. And then we will come back to this guy, which needs another coat as well. Okay, so there are my 4 tiles. Now I'm gonna let those dry because I have to do stuff to the backs of them. I'm gonna darken up the edges on them. I'm also going to put some dots on a couple and the plaid on a couple as well. So now we have to decide how we're going to paint each of our letters. You do not have to paint the letters the same way that I paint mine, so feel free to do whatever you want to do with your letters. I'm going to paint the large L that's going on my brown tile, the darker orange, the pumpkin color. So I'm just going to use this same sponge. You can use a white wedge if you would rather, but this piece is large enough that using the yellow sponge is fine. We're gonna let that dry so we can put a second coat on it. The smaller L, I think I'm gonna go and paint it the lighter color orange. Now this lighter color orange will need several coats. It does not, orange does not cover well. You could put a coat of the sweater weather on first and then do a coat of the orange and it will cover a little bit better. But I'll just put a couple, 2-3 coats on. All right, so we're gonna leave that there. And now the F I'm going to do in, I think I'm gonna do the F in that lighter shade of green. I thought about doing it in sweater weather, so there's an option for you. There's so much you could do with this. You get a nice variety of paint. All right, so there's my F. I'm just gonna put that up there and let that dry for a minute. Everything's gonna need another coat, but while we're waiting for that to happen, I'm going to move on to my pumpkin. On my pumpkin, I'm going to paint this blue color, this Shipyard Blue. And I'm gonna put some streaks of sweater weather in here as well, but first I'm gonna get a coat of the blue on. And we'll use our paintbrush to paint the stem. So just use your sponge to get your blue on, and you can just come up and swoop around that spot where it meets the stem with your sponge. You can get in there close enough. Okay, and there's our pumpkin. We're just gonna let that dry for a second. That's gonna need more work done to it, but first it has to dry. So we got some leaves we've got to paint. So one of my leaves, I'm going to paint a solid of the fern green. I'm gonna just take a sponge, a white wedge, and I'm gonna cut it in half. And then I'm going to paint this leaf of the solid fern green there. And then I'm gonna take the other half and I'm going to paint this leaf the lighter shade of orange. Alright. I guess I could have used this. I didn't even, wasn't thinking, guys, wasn't thinking. While I have my sponge out and working with my lighter orange paint, I'm just going to give that L a second coat because that's going to take probably at least 3. Everything could get its second coat now, all of our letters here. So let's go and do the second coat on the big L. And we'll get the second coat on the F. And then let's get a second coat on our blue pumpkin. All right. Okay, let's put one more coat on our orange, the lighter orange pieces. That would be the small L, the short L, and the leaf. And then let's put another coat of fern color on the other leaf. And grab a baby wipe And for the top of the acorn, we are just gonna dip a baby wipe in our brown paint. And we're gonna rub that onto the top of the acorn there. Just like that. Now I'm also going to grab this part of the acorn and do the top stem part with the baby wipe, just that. Now the bottom part here, I'm going to use the sponge that I used to create this lighter brown, and I'm going to paint that onto the nut of the acorn. All right, so let's just make sure that none of these need another coat. It looks good. All right. Oh, I love these colors together. Okay, so for this piece that the pumpkin is going to sit on, I'm going to make that one look plaid. I'm also going to make this one look plaid. So I'm going to take my round brush and my flat brush. You'll get one of each in your kit here. And I'm going to take, we're going to end up using most of the colors, and we're going to use both brushes. So for this one, I'm going to use the brown and the flat brush. Now brown cover is kind of difficult, so don't get upset with yourself. I'm just going to make a stripe going all the way across. And yep, you're going to have to pick up paint and do it again, but I didn't want to stop midway because I don't want to lose the momentum of the straight line. And then I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to do another one. And that's gonna be that one. Now that one will probably need another coat. I'm not really concerned if we don't put another coat on it, on the brown, but I'm also going to do, I'm gonna do all the colors, I think. So let's grab green, and I'm gonna use my round brush for the green, and I'm gonna put just a thin stripe. And then I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to do the same thing the other direction. I'm going to move it down though. You can do it wherever you want to do it. And I'm actually going to do another one over here. I'm gonna rinse my brush out, and I'm gonna grab the darker orange paint. I'm gonna come in with the lighter orange. You can go back and you can add plaid stripes wherever you need to. See what this looks like. Yeah, I'm gonna put a little bit more in here because my pumpkin's gonna cover the majority of that. So I wanna be able to see more stripes. So I'm just gonna come up top with another dark one, dark orange one. And then maybe right down this way. And then I think I'm just gonna add just a little bit of brown in there in a thin stripe. All right, cute. And let's see. Yeah, that's better. Actually, I'm still not done. I'm gonna put one more stripe down here. And I'm just gonna do that one in green. I'm using my round brush, but I'm gonna make it a little bit wider. All right, there we go. I think I should be happy with that. All right, I'm gonna do my pumpkin real quick. So I'm gonna run some sweater weather through it, but I don't want it just sweater weather. I really want it just a lighter shade of this blue. So I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna actually put another coat of blue on here so we have some wet paint. All right, so now we've got our wet paint on there, and I'm gonna come in with the wrong end of, not the wrong end, but the narrower end of a sponge. I'm just gonna grab some of that sweater weather, and I'm gonna just kind of streak it in here real quick. It doesn't look great right now, that's okay, I'm just getting that color in there. Then I'm gonna come back with that sponge, the blue sponge, and I'm just gonna swipe in the direction of the pumpkin grooves, the contour of the pumpkin. Now if it got too white and you don't like it, just add a little bit more blue right back in. Or whatever color. You can do this with your orange, your dark orange, your light orange, your green. If you want a green pumpkin, you can do it with just sweater weather and brown. Pumpkins are so many colors. It's fantastic. There's just so much that you can do with pumpkins. Okay, on the back of this guy here, I'm going to put dots. So I'm going to use the wrong end of my paintbrush, and I'm going to use sweater weather. I'm just going to put dots on it. So I'm gonna dip my paintbrush into my sweater weather, and I'm gonna make uniform dots. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a dot in each corner. And then I'm gonna split that distance in half, just eyeballing it on both sides there. I'm gonna do that again in half, just eyeballing. And then let's see, should it be 2? Let's go just 1. Let's split the difference in across horizontally here, and do the same thing at the bottom. And then we're gonna fill in all the spaces in the middle of where the dots should meet up, okay? And here. And then I'm going to do in the middle of each of these. So 1 here, 1 here. This one will probably, that's gonna be covered, but that's okay. You still wanna put it in there. That one will be right on the line. Now yours might not end up like this because your spacing might be off. So now on this section, it's all gonna be covered by the F, so I don't even have to put anything in that section. So we're gonna let that dry. I was thinking I was gonna do plaid on this one. I'm gonna do it a little bit differently though. I am going to use my wide brush, my wide flat. And for this one, I'm going to do them on an angle and almost hardly any paint on it. So kind of like a dry brushing effect. And I'm going to start with white, and I'm gonna do a swipe. You see I'm not really filling it all in, it's just I'm going to use blue on this one, and when I use the flat brush this time, I am going to turn it on its side so it is the narrower like that. That probably made more sense to show you. Oh, that's cute. I love this color combination. So I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to use the green. And then I'm going, this one has the dark orange on it. So I'm going to, and I don't want to use the light orange. I just don't think it will look that great. So I'm gonna use a brown. I'm gonna use the rounded brush. And I'm just gonna run a thin line next to the green. Let's just hold our L over top of it. Oh yes, that is cute. Okay. Now for this guy, I'm going to take my fern sponge that I used for the leaf, and it doesn't have much paint left in it, and I don't want a lot, and I'm just gonna come around and I'm gonna drag it along the edge of the tile. Just darkening that edge up a little bit. That's all I'm gonna do with that. And then I am going to do dots on this one as well. Although I do want a bigger dot, so I have an ink pen here. I'm just gonna use the end of my ink pen, and I'm gonna use the Sweater Weather paint and make larger dots. Kind of the same on this one. I'm gonna go each corner. And then the center of everything. Left, right, top, bottom. It will be covered slightly by your letter, so keep that in mind. And then, so that's how that should look first. And then each of these centers will get one, but that one's gonna be covered by the L. This one will barely make it to the top, but we wanna put it in there anyway, even if only a little bit shows. And then this one will get one right here. All right. And let's see, now we've got to paint the stem of our pumpkin, and I'm just gonna use that sponge. You can use your flat brush or your rounded brush as well, because you're gonna wanna get right up to the line of that pumpkin. It should be pretty easy to do. Let that dry, and then we're gonna come to our leaf here. I'm gonna use my round thin brush, and I'm gonna grab a little bit of brown. My brush, I'm gonna make my brush a little wet, and I'm just gonna grab a little bit of brown. I'm just using the lid here, water down some brown paint. And then I'm just gonna trace the line of the veins. Just like that. I'm gonna do the same thing with this guy here. I'm just gonna trace the line of the veins. I'm going to take this one a step further, and I'm going to take this dark colored sponge, the darker orange, and once again this one's been here for a minute, it's kind of dry, and I'm just going to come along the edges and just grab a little bit of the edge just to darken the edge of the leaf up with that darker paint. Makes such a difference. All right, on this leaf, I'm going to grab, let's see, how can I do this? I'm gonna take and I'm gonna cut one of my half wedges here in half again, because I only need a tiny bit. And I'm gonna grab a tiny bit of brown paint and I'm gonna pounce most of it off, because you hardly want any paint at all. And then I'm just gonna darken these edges up just a little bit with the brown paint. If I had used a lighter green, I could come back with that darker green, but I didn't, so we're going to use brown. You don't even have to do this. That's just, it's up to you. Okay, so that's what that guy ended up looking like. Trying to decide if I want to do anything else to this F. Nope, I think I'm gonna leave it. Okay, I'm gonna close up my paint. I feel like I am probably done with painting everything. All right. I'm gonna dry fit all of my stuff here. Let me get this in camera for you. All right. Now my dots are not dry all the way, so I either have to wait or I have to be careful. I'm not gonna wait. All right, there are my backer pieces. This is cute. I think I say that about everything that we do, but this is cute. All right, I'm gonna take my super glue and I'm gonna start gluing these pieces on. Just gonna run a glue around the outside perimeter and a little bit in the middle. And I'm gonna position them so that they're flush along both sides. And then I'm gonna pick up the next piece and do the same thing. And apply pressure to set them. Okay, so there's our backers. Now we're gonna put our pieces on, our letters, and our pumpkin. Oh, this is so cute. So cute. Okay, so now we're gonna glue our letters on. You know, if you wanted to decorate your letters, you could as well. I just don't wanna do too much, so there's too many patterns going on and it takes away from it. So you could always decorate your letters instead of like putting the plaid look on your backer pieces. Options, you have options. See, red would not have looked good on that heart. I'm glad I didn't do red after all. I don't think I would have liked it. Okay, I'm gonna flip this over real quick before I do any more on it because I don't want it to get too tall. And we're gonna put these pieces on. All right, so these are kickstands to hold it up. And they go like this. This is the top, so this is the bottom, right? And you'll see that these are kind of like a horseshoe, and they sit like that, and you're gonna glue those in. So we're gonna just glue that on, and you're gonna glue that flush at the bottom here. So that gets glued flush to the bottom. Now, to make things easier here, I drop a line of glue in the channel because I don't want them to come apart. But if you wanted to be able to lay this flat, you would not glue these half circles in. Because then you could take them out, and then when it's time to store it, you could lay this piece flat. But then you have to keep track of these. Okay, so that's your stand. For a second here, we have to glue our acorn together. And then we have our 2 leaves we've got to put on. So let's see. You can put them anywhere you want to put them. I think that's where I'm going to put mine. But that's how it turned out. I think it's adorable. So cute. All right, guys, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next month.